And we're live. No, not working on the dendrobium, but I am just snapping something together because it's a lot easier to snap something together than it is to do something more intense when I'm doing this Thursday night evening thing. OSG Unleashed thing is always hard to do when I've got a model and trying to speak at walking and chewing gum at the same time is hard. Let's just leave it at that. Anyway, but once again, I'm just kind of shocked, pissed, and just frustrated with what's going on in the world out there. I will say this. I will say last weekend's I did one of the legs of the rally, the No Kings rally, and it was good to see a lot of people out there who are just as frustrated, and just my little neck of the woods, just frustrated with the bullshit that's going on. Burn the corpo space noise. Yeah. There's it's always frustrating, I guess. And Joe, you might chime in on this. I guess it's frustrating when first of all, I've never been anti-government. I believe that government has the potential to do a lot of good for our communities and our people. It's just that it quite often humanity or humans, not humanity, humans get in the way. That's the same thing with corporations. I'm not anti-corp. Hey, Nick, I'm not against, people making money. I'm not opposed to any of that. I'm opposed to rampant greed when we lose our humanity. And this is the difference when humans get in the way and we lose our humanity. That's what I get frustrated with. Yo, what's going on, Ken? Welcome. And that's the thing that kind of gets me. So we have, and this is what I'm going to almost start with this thing again. I am woke. And I don't care if people like it or not. Go fuck yourself if you don't like it. I am woke. Okay. I am. You want to own this liberal? Have at it. You can give it a try and see where that gets you. And it ain't going to take you very far. Okay. There's that. Nice intersection language. Yeah, exactly. So we got that going on. Ray, good evening, by the way. So we got that going on. I guess it's like I've always said, as long as corporations benefit society, I'm totally fine with it. You want to go out and buy a Ferrari, if that's your thing, have at it. But when that gets in the way of other things, that's when I have a problem. When so many people are just trying to we're trying to scam people so I can go get another Ferrari. Something that Lucas has actually once mentioned, which I find to be fascinating. All that speaking in cursive. That's a problem. The two things I'm gonna continue to come back with are the first. Anybody who thinks that I'm un-American because I'm voicing my opposition to this stupidity, I think you got roles flipped. I think that, in fact, I believe that anybody who believes that what is going on, this normalcy that the current regime is trying to put in, is the right way, and we are being anti-democratic, anti-American, you got it all wrong. Back on will be $6 this year, George's Ferrari fund. Exactly. A couple of bucks coming my way. Our esteemed panel of experts. So there's that. And the other part is, and I keep talking about this too, I will not let these psychotic fucking Christians, the ones who go out there and throw people out of this country because Jesus wants this, this kind of bullshit that this land is a Christian nation, that bullshit, that I will not let them own Christianity anymore. I will not allow. It's just not in my makeup. It's like, you want to believe that stuff? Fine. You can go call yourself whatever the fuck you want. You ain't a Christian. That's just the nature of it. Okay? I don't care what I don't care what the fuck you're reading. It ain't the Bible. Okay. I don't care what your preachers are telling you. It ain't the Christian way. So that stuff aside. Okay. Anyway, this week is just another one of those angry weeks. And the reason I guess I'm getting angry and angry about this, and I'm trying to take more of the approach of you know, of humanity and having good faith towards other people. What I guess this week just really frustrates me so much with is Jesus flips tables of coin. Exactly, Joe. That's exactly it. He walked up to these people and said, "What the fuck are you doing here? This is a temple." But doesn't, and it's like, well, what do you mean? Everything is fine. It's like, no, you guys are completely misinterpreting everything. Anyway. So I guess what I continue to get frustrated with, and this is something that I've mentioned quite a bit in the past, stop fucking lying. Just stop. Stop with the lies, you know? And it's just getting more, it's getting worse. It is absolutely getting worse. And it's unconscionable to me that there are so many Americans out there, so many in the world who look at it and just say, I don't see a problem. It's like, you don't see a problem of the lies, you know, things like, oh, you know, I was the one who kind of helped, India and Pakistan resolve their problem. If it wasn't for me, nothing would have gotten done, you know, and you listen to India and they're like, what are you talking about? You know, going up to the G7 and in front of an entire world of world leaders, like the highest pinnacle of world leaders, and the bullshit that you're ranting in front of all these people, it just makes you look like a fucking idiot. You know, when you listen to the president of Mexico, you know, the premiers of other countries, you know, the UK, Canada, France, you listen to these people and how they speak and how they come across, and they come across both from a side of humanity as well as from a side of intelligence, of being erudite. And then you got whatever we have get up in front and just blither like an idiot and lie about stuff. It's just unconscionable. I have the same drinking glasses. Do you now? Devil's advocate here, but maybe that's the interpretation of Christianity. That's there. It is. And unfortunately, Ken, it's wrong. I mean, your biblical foundation is incorrect. So, yes, you could have that view. Absolutely. And you could be wrong. Just like that's red. Sure. I guess if you've got a certain level of understanding that that's right in everybody else's view, in a world where there's some fact, that is actually not red. Honesty is at the heart is hard to find as common sense. Sometimes you have to pay extra, and that's sad. Yep. At least someone put crayons for the Marines. Yeah. Jesus Christ. That parade, what a shit show that was. Wow. Anyway, so the amount of lies that are being kind of tossed on our throats, the amount of incoherency. Squeaky tanks, boy, were those squeaky? I mean, it's like, wow. And then looking at the crowds in the back, no, the few that were there, and no one was. Hey, Katie, by the way, let me just say a quick hello. How are you? But the squeaky tanks and the lack of crowds, and then looking at the people who are in the stands, including our president and his entourage, and all of them were like bored to tears. It's like, what was this for? What was this for? For you to say that they are wrong, aren't you being kind of you are more Christian or a better Christian? I think in many ways, Ken, it's all one has to do is look at the text in the Bible. I'm not asking you to become a biblical scholar, but, you know, what happened to the, you know, you take care of people, because that's what Christ said. What's the greatest commandment? Love thy neighbor. Loving thy neighbor doesn't mean throw your fucking neighbor out. So no, I think one could. There are some things that, and Ken, I think you're bringing up one of the concerns that I have is that we create these. Well, that's an interpretation, and in fact, no, there are some things that are very much factual. And if you're going to take, and don't get me wrong, the Bible is littered with things that are incorrect, or at least things that can be interpreted. But there are the teachings of Christ that are not subject for interpretation if you're claiming to be a Christian. Air show this weekend over here. Nice. What's the air show about? Don't fear evil men, fear the indifference of good men. Yep, 100%. 100%. So again, from my perspective, a lot of this problem that I'm having with our current regime is the Blue Angel show. Oh, nice. The Blue Angels. At least I'm sure they'll have a good show, unlike last weekend. So I guess I'm also just getting tired of like I said, the incessant lies and things like, we're looking to deport criminals. And now you're just looking to deport anyone who's not white, from a land that's just not one of those lands that we agree, that we respect, that can bring in people that'll create a quality of life here. That what was the terminology that they use? There will be less. The reason why they brought the Afrikaners in was because their integration will be easier. What the hell is that? I got you, but the Bible is not the most straightforward text. It is not. However, there are, and don't get me wrong, dude, I've read Revelations and I still think it was like Paul was on some kind of psychotic trip. He must have been like either in a lot of pain and in some fun drugs or something was going on. That book is a trip. However, there is some very explicit language, and that's what I'm getting at. There's a lot of places where there can be interpretation, but in terms of the true Christian faith and what Christ did, no, there is no place for interpretation in that. He was there among he didn't hang out with the rich people. He didn't hang out with the well-to-do. He didn't hang out with leaders. He hung out with the masses and helped the masses. That's what he did. I remember the part in the Bible where it talks about crap on Pelosi's desk and beat her husband with a hammer, for that matter. Yes, thank you, Peter. I appreciate that. That's what I'm getting at. A lot of these people who have these big fucking crosses on them and do that shit, no, you cannot do that. Maybe Jesus hated immigrants, but kept it low key so not to get canceled, Bad for his love thy neighbor image. Interesting. And I'm going to leave it at that. So, but I'm just like I said, I guess I'm just getting every week, just a little bit more tired of the lies. I'm also getting tired of I will say anything it takes as long as I get the votes. I will say anything that will denigrate that will put myself in a better light, denigrate my opposition, even if later I can reverse it. That we're about to go to war between Iran and Israel, in the war between those two countries, I think is seriously problematic. And the president has just been tweeting about it, or whatever his Truth Social thing is. But have we heard anything? Like, has he come down and just said, hey, speaking to the American people, let me tell you where I am on this. Come across and be a leader. Dude, this guy is not a fucking leader. Leading from a keyboard, being a keyboard warrior is not being a leader. Wasn't Jesus an immigrant? In a way, he was. Yes, he was. Whoops. Hey, I'm losing parts. Sorry, guys. Give me a second. Oh, for fuck's sake. There we go. So, I think the level of professionalism that we're seeing, or the lack of professionalism that we're seeing from what's coming out of the White House too, is just, it's uncalled for. The whole let's start with. Let us start with some of the people in his office. No, but he visited the U.S. in 2019 for spring break. He'd have to be able to string two coherent thoughts together in order to actually address the pending military action. I think that's the problem, and I don't think he can. I was actually listening to something that he did back in about 2016, 2017, and there was a coherency to him at least, and maybe that was he just had better speechwriters or what have you. But there was a time when he at least could come across that way. But when he goes off script, which is the majority of the time because he just wings it. In fact, was it earlier today? He says, I make decisions at the last second because, you just need to have as much of updated information as possible. It's like, no, that's not how you do things. You don't make decisions at the last second. As Mary and Joseph displaced due to the Romans. I guess in a way, yes, that is true. But, the whole Pete Hegseth thing about changing the military bases names back to those from Confederates because we want to maintain morale. Unbelievable. Again, I wish Pete Hegseth would, again, these are the lies. I wish Pete Hegseth would just say, look, I'm a white Christian nationalist and fuck all. I'm going to do what I want, and we're going to change these things back because these were white Christian guys from back in the day, who were like, this is what they wanted to do, and black people and women and minorities and whatever. Fuck them all. I wish he would just come out and just be honest and just say what he meant, as opposed to hiding behind, we're trying to get rid of these texts that are antithetical to the fighting image. Let's get towards Rampage. Yep. Thanks, Ken. Look at that. Ken's actually almost like a biblical scholar. Almost. Why is it so hard to be kind to people in need? First of all, Light, welcome. How are you? Yeah, I think that's your core question is it. And this is, if you listen to the lies and the hate that's behind it, that are the people in power right now are completely driven by hatred. Absolutely. It's like hatred and fear. There is no, where's the kindness? Where's the kindness in anything that's going on? There's no one in that cabinet that has a lick of sense or the actual experience for the job. Yeah, exactly. Talk about people who are, let's get rid of DEIs, because we don't want to put in people who have, who's because of their skin color, because of their nationality, because of where they come from. We don't want to put those people in place because you're giving those jobs to people who aren't deserving. Instead, let's give it to people from Fox News because they're so experienced. Is hating fear okay to do? Yeah. My Ken, just as an aside, my daughter Zoe keeps coming, she says, it's okay to punch a Nazi. And it's like, yes, it is. No, it's not. Yeah, I know. But, I think Light has, Light's got the core element there. And it's hard when you have a group of people like Trump, who is on his vengeance tour. All of these people who've been vilified, Kash Patel, who's got such an inferiority complex and is going out there, and, our director of the FBI, who's been persecuted. I don't even know if these guys know what persecution really is. You got, the worst of the bunch, the Stephen Millers. That guy, what was it that the ABC News reporter said about him? That he is nothing. His sustenance, the thing that feeds his soul is hate. And that's kind of in your face. That's what you see, Hating fear doesn't make sense. You should be afraid of appropriate things related to being the best version of yourself, at least, and that leads to the world being a safer place. Why? Hey, Light, can you do me a favor? Can you run for office, please? please run for please become involved in community and hopefully in government down the road. Why is it that people who have an intellectual understanding of that are the ones who are not in power? you know. And I do understand, because fear and loathing, fear and hatred is the thing that gets you votes. It's like when you espouse, like, hey, these people are coming after you. Oh my God, you're right. When you build that kind of fear, there's an innate sense in us to jump back and go, you're right. And this person's going to save me. I'm the one who can save you from this. Look at all this evil that's going on. You hear one case of something bad happening, it gets blown out of proportion, and then suddenly it's like, look at all this fear and hatred that's going on in the world, and people are like, you're right. And then you couple that with the lies. If it wasn't for our current president, that LA would be on fire. Really? I'm sorry. When you have everybody in local government there, basically from the mayor through the head of the police force, the governor, all the officials there saying, we had this thing under control. But you espouse this thing. I actually heard something very interesting in a report recently. And what we're seeing is, and this is like, I guess, one of the things that whatever is considered the legacy media, or the voices that are loudest, right? One of the concerns that's out there is we can say anything. Like, for example, like the assassination of the two local leaders, Democratic leaders in Minnesota, and then the way that story got twisted. That this was the governor's appointed person is the one that assassinated these people. And that got twisted into saying, well, this guy must have been a psychotic lefty that kind of went out there and killed these people. When you actually delve into his history, you find out that's not the case. So what ends up happening when that fallacy goes out there, when people go out there and just say, oh, it's a left lunatic that did this, that goes out there. And then, oh, you retract it, or you kill your social media post on that, or what have you. But the lie is already out there. It's already gone out and become viral. That impact. We're in a place right now where we can say anything, and somebody will amplify it. And then even if it's discarded as false and somebody retracts it, it doesn't matter, because the false narrative has already been put out. So I guess, and I know I do this a lot. I didn't grow up this way. Look, I'm not a perfect human being. I don't think any of us here. I'm not saying anybody's perfect, but I think I think we should all try at least not to lie, and to try to espouse our lies and make them try to become the truth. You cannot continue to lie so hard and expect it to be the truth. At some point, don't you understand that what you are doing is nothing more than lying? Of course, let the saver let me shut the door. Exactly. And that's something that I guess, I hope at some point that reason and rationale come back, that people start, once again, if you hear something that doesn't sound right, do the research on it, look into it. Oh no, I'm not going to look into it. If whatever news agency says it's true, it must be true. And I don't care what extreme you're in. Okay. But if they say it's true, by the way, I listen to a lot of left-wing media, a lot of it. And the amount of times that I hear something, I'm like, well, hold it a second. Let me look into this. Okay. I do that all the time. And I think I'm becoming an outlier, because I don't think that that's what's happening right now. I don't think that people are generally saying, you know what, I heard something, and let me check to see if that's actually true. Because we don't trust. What sources do we go to for trust? Michael Wine, I think, rightfully gave a good example of going to say something like, Ground News. But Ground News is only reporting the news and telling you what the bias is on that news story. But there is no, is this a true story? And I understand how hard that is to do, because in something that happens that's like, my fist hitting this table here, right? Something that's I'm going to tell a story about how that happened, and there's going to be some interpretation to that. You know, how do we go back to creating news like with as the least amount of bias, and then having people see that the least amount of bias is what we want? I hate to say this, but if somebody does something evil and you tell them that you did something evil and wrong, right? If you did something wrong, you can't, it's factual. There's something there to it, like the lies that are coming out of the president. If there's something factual that's there, then it's up to people to say, okay, let me verify that is true, and then say, well, my bias is this, but the truth is that. You can't just say I'm pushing the truth aside in order to prove the bias. Treat everything and take the average. Truth usually lies in between two sources. 100%. 100%, Ken. Truth is neutral. Ground News also has blind spot. It does, and it's very, very good. But the blind spot, if I'm correct, and correct me if I'm wrong here, blind spot is only to tell you what stories are being told by one side or the other. Hey, here's a story that you on the left might not be seeing. Hey, here's a story on the right that you might not be seeing. All right, just flip a coin and flip-flop. Could do that too. You know, I think today I'm going to look at news from a slightly left of center, or I'm going to be on a hard right side today. No. Fact is fact. C15. But once again, I also think that whatever political biases are out there, and I know that there are plenty. And look, I think I'm gonna go after both sides on a couple things. Okay, I am absolutely at my wit's end when I hear Democrats attacking in Congress, attacking whoever it is from the government, the different cabinet members in the government, just going after them like with some of the stuff that they're saying. And the same thing on the flip when I see like what happened with Congress going after the Democratic governors. It's like, when did we lose the ability to? I understand you want to call bullshit. I get it, but when did we lose the ability to at least have some level of decorum and not make everything feel like a personal attack? Don't get me wrong. I think that and again, I'm biased a little bit and I get it, but I think also I'm coming from a point of reality here. The regime, the people they send in are absolutely lying to us. But I don't think then that the Democrats should be sitting there and personalizing it. And that's what I feel is going on. We're losing the sense of being able, because what we're doing is we're creating this, the schism is getting wider and wider. And it's at what point when this regime thing changes, how are we going to be able to come back? How are we going to be able to come back? The name of my sex. Nice. No, blind spot is what nobody is reporting. Nobody is reporting. Okay, I got to take a look at that because my understanding is it was different from that, Mike. But I'll take a look at that. Thank you for correcting. It does kind of scare me that there doesn't seem to be any consistent, reliable source. All stories are also spun from to satisfy someone. Yeah, but I do think that there are places that try. But even though, like, for example, I'm going to use NPR as an example. Do I think all of NPR is completely unbiased? No, I think some of the local NPR stations definitely come across sounding like they're a little biased. But I think NPR attempts to try to be unbiased. I think in the past, I think the New York Times and the Washington Post attempted to be less biased. CNN? No, not at all. I don't trust CNN. False testimony is a crime in court, regardless of your opinion of life. Why wait until there's a jury collected and judge things are already collected? Yeah, exactly, light. But because I think it's like, I think people believe the lie so deeply that they believe it's the truth. I mean, I know due process is a standard. I'm not against court, but I'm saying court is beyond the physical place. I think that's kind of what Light was also trying to get at. I love NPR. I do too. And I think that generally they try to be unbiased. However, they're looked upon as biased because when you have, here's the example, I guess. I don't care what side of the political spectrum. The reason why Trump and the regime are losing so many court cases is because they are violating the Constitution. But when you hear those members of Trump's inner circle basically saying these judges are basically, they're, what was it that he said exactly? They're creating, they're the ones who are now making laws on how we're going to be running our diplomacy, our government, how we're going to be running the government. And the answer is no. You're violating the Constitution. You are violating law, and you're being called out on it. And that to me is significantly problematic. So the reason why Trump is losing, the majority of the cases that are going up against him isn't because they hate him. It's because you're violating law. I was explaining The Simpsons, Lisa will become president next and we'll figure oh God, I hope so. Never ending pie robot. I do love pie. Who doesn't love pie? Anybody else see Arnold's interview on The View? I did not. I heard about it, but I haven't really seen much of it. But Mike, I will say this. I do love your Schwarzenegger impression. It's very good. You need to do that at least once during your live stream. By the way, I have watched your live stream. I'm sorry I missed it last night, Wednesday night, but I did get a chance to watch it. And if you guys aren't following Mike, the funny thing is, here's a good example, and I love this. Mike and I are politically on different spectrums. Gundemonium Works and I are politically different spectrums. I still will try to watch every episode of his model making stuff. Why? Because I think he's a good person and he does great work, and I love the guy. Who's Mike? Nah, some loser. At this point, I'm surprised that all the laws haven't been abolished. Seeing the inclination of people to do whatever they want is frightening. Yes. And that's, I think, what we're at. And that's what they're working towards. That at some point, the hands are going to get thrown up and everybody's going to just say, you know what, screw this. The courts are not doing what we want them to do. They are doing what they need to do, not what you want them to do. I always forget to do the Arnold in a minute during the live stream. I'm going to have to start reminding you, Mike. Mike, time for the Arnold minute. C13. But I think it's all I care about, and again, I don't expect much from my government. I expect truth. That's what I expect. And I'm not, and truth isn't like one-sided. It's not the Democrats are the only ones who are telling the truth. No, of course not. No. I think both sides have been complicit in doing things that are wrong and will bend reality in order to get what they need. However, I think we're seeing in this current regime that it is way beyond, like, magnitudes. We're not talking about like a small percentage difference. Oh, Obama versus George W. Bush versus Biden or whatever. Those guys all, whatever. They play. I mean, Bush kind of pushed it with the whole Iraq thing. But beyond that, those guys all kind of played a little bit like it wasn't bad. What we're seeing now is in a different galaxy altogether. The lying and the gaslighting that are coming out right now are to a completely different extreme. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. There it is. And I will take a moment to show you what I'm working on, because this model is this is a fun model. I didn't like the first of the Sakura Wars kits that I was working on, but I'm really liking this one. because we have to remember this is actually, that's what we're working on. The spherical striker Mugen. This thing just looks fucking awesome. Love this model. I love the looks of this model. Anyway, so I'm hoping at some point, you know, we try to kind of hope beyond hope that bullshit will continue to be called out. The lies will continue to not be accepted. And I think we're starting to see that there is a transition. I think the absence of truth is different than a false impression. Lying to your own people, subjects them to torture by their own trust in you and form of domestic warfare. Oh, it absolutely is. There's actually a theory that I've heard about exactly that, like that the reason why a lot of this is happening is to create such distrust in government that everybody will just throw up their arms and just say, I'm done with all this, and anything goes. That's the reason. So, you know, now suddenly you're not receiving your Social Security checks, your Medicaid, all of that stuff. Government isn't working, rather than this regime created that pain. What's the analogy that I've heard quite often? It's like you're the arsonist, and then you're going to be the one who's going to come in as the firefighter to put it out. No. What can be done? You know, the one thing that I think that can be done is it's exactly what we're starting to see, and that is that people need to continue to stand up and stand out. You know, when you had, I don't know, I've heard everything from 3 million to like 10 million people marched, you know, last weekend, you know, in the No Kings rally. You know, I don't, like I said, those are one of those numbers things. Thanks, Nick. Those are one of those numbers things I don't accept. It's like, give me facts. I'm not going to take some left wings, you know, side on, oh my God, you know, they said there were 10 million. Okay, where's your facts? Show me your facts. But here's another example, like what we saw today when ICE was going to go into Dodger Stadium, and the Dodgers said, no, you're not. And ICE turned away. Now, will that continue to happen? Don't know. But I think the way it's going to happen, like the only way it can happen, is when people stand up. You know, we have a tendency to believe, well, you know, Congress is going to stand up. They're not doing shit. You know, this current Congress, and I'm sorry, I'm going to say it, these Republicans right now are just basically whatever Donald wants, fine. Just you know, our saying no is implicit in us saying yes to him. So you got that going on. Hey, Clint, what's going on, brother? You moved in yet? So you got that going on. Sorry, guys, give me a second here. There we go. People can't be career politicians anymore. We need actual regular humans to bring humility and empathy to leadership. I think we do, but how do you do that? When, as the one thing that we learned from Elon Musk was, I don't care where you think of him and his politics, but he was able to basically try to buy his way into stuff. The good thing is, I think, especially after the, you know, starting the beginning of this year and through this year, we've seen that people are like, I don't care, you know, because he was trying to buy certain elections, for example, like in Minnesota, and that failed. Even when he was offering, like, I'll pay people $1 million. Which is illegal, by the way. Unpacking as we speak. It's a process. Clint, it is a process. I think it's beyond political parties labels, but there's definitely a problem with the people who take authority. Hopefully things get better. I'm optimistic that things are going to get better. You know, because here's the thing. It may not, and I'm going to put it this way. It may not even happen in my lifetime. At this point, so much damage has been done, both in our country financially, the damage that we've done in with our partners out there in the world, So much damage has been done that I don't think we're going to recover. It doesn't matter who becomes president in the next 4 years or 4 years after that. They're going to have so much to clean up that, and by clean up, I mean you have to now build trust in your trading and military partnerships, your foreign, your international partnerships. And I don't know that that's going to be something that's going to happen, because if we think about what happened, so we went from Obama to Trump, who got us out of a bunch of things. We'll use an example. He got us out of the international climate change, group. He got us out. Biden comes in, he brings us back in. Trump comes in, we go out. So you got people in the world who are like other countries who are just saying, there's too much ping pong going on. So depending on who's voted in at any one time, we could see a complete, not just a slight reversal, but a complete 180-degree flip on stuff. And when that happens, how can you be trusted? And right now, I don't think as a country, I don't think as a people looking at what's going on in Congress with the animosity between Democrats and Republicans, I don't foresee that we're going to be able to reconcile anytime soon. And if we can't reconcile, how do we reconcile with the world? The president can't be that old. You can't even tell his mom that he's done. So you can think about his actions. Exactly. If I can just say, can we possibly get some younger people elected in? I'm done. When with people, like, I'm looking at people in these roles who are like substantially older than me. It's like, enough. I'm done. We need young blood in there. Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong. Like I said, I voted for Biden. It was like, I remember when he entered the race, I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Really? We got what we paid for. And this is where the Democrats continue to F it up so badly. It's like, stop trying to put in your anointed person. Stop. All you're doing is you're creating chaos. Finally, we agree. Oh, I'm totally in agreement with that. I think, dude, that's what happened in 2016. I want to just take this a step back for a second. Think about if the person that the people in the United States, the Democrats, wanted was Bernie Sanders, but the entire Democratic machine was 100% behind Hillary. And because of that, we got Trump. No, this is why I'm just so you know, I'm a Democrat still, and it's like every day I keep asking myself, okay, I'm doing this because I can't be on the other side, but there is no viable in between right now. His mom even called him a dumbass and said in his post that she hoped he would never get into politics. Yeah. Sorry, give me a sec. A1, 2. There it is. Look at the wrong part. So my hope is, I continue to hope. I continue to have hope, and I continue to hope that I'll see some of this change in my lifetime, but I'm not optimistic. I'm not optimistic that we're going to be able to get back into the good graces of the world community, the financial community. I don't think we're going to see that in our lifetime. And the reason is, once again, because let's say, for example, cooler heads prevail. We get, I'm going to just say, let's say you get Democrats back into Congress. They win the House, they win the Senate, and 2 years later, you get the presidency. That's great. The tensions are still going to be there. That hatred is still going to be there. This is why, as much as we might disagree in our politics, that hatred and the hatred is espoused by how we're getting our media, how we're getting our information, that we are going to. Sorry, guys, it's actually bugging the shit out of me. Let's see if I can get this camera to focus. There we go. We need to get into a place where we are not buying into conspiracy theories and propaganda. That whether it's Fox or CNN, whether it's the extremists like the Charlie Kirks and the Benny Jerkoffs there, all the stuff they're doing, when you've got people like the Tate brothers and Nick Fuentes, who are basically just, the Alex Joneses of the world, they're just hate-filled. These people are absolutely just filled with such animus. And as long as they're still given the ability to have a platform that creates divide, that will be a continuing problem. And do I think that the left is doing that? Yeah, there's a couple of YouTube channels I follow, and it's like, when I hear about, and I'm going to use this, when you got people on the side of MAGA who finally just say, you know what, I made a mistake, and the response to them is, well, fuck you, too late. That's not an appropriate response. Never has been. As opposed to, you know what, when a cult member comes out of a cult, you don't sit there and vilify them and attack them, which forces them back into their cult. You bring them in and just say, hey, I'm glad you've seen the light. Let's talk. Now, where that talk goes let's at least dialogue. Let's have a conversation. We'll see where it goes next. This is going to have a great weekend. Julius, YouTube. It's only Thursday, Julius. Always good to see you, by the way, brother. Always good. Thank you for popping in. By the way, guys, Julius is like one of the nicest guys out there. Such a sweetheart of a person. Making Argentina guacamole again. Yeah, exactly. One of the nicest people out there. So we have to get back to close enough. More than close enough. One of the nicest people. Anyway, we have to get back to a place where the hatred kind of comes to an end, and the ability to us to disagree and be okay with that is fine. Also, we have to get to a point where, I hate to put it this way, but because you have an opinion doesn't make you an expert. Well, I think it's like, that's great. I'm glad you think that. Doesn't make you an expert. The amount of people who think just because opinions are like assholes, everybody has one, but that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody's asshole is good, right? So yes, our doctor's going to fuck up. Yes. Our politician's going to fuck up. Yes. Our, take your pick, accountant's going to fuck up. Lawyer's going to fuck up. AV guy's going to fuck up. Absolutely. But the point is, it's okay. You made a mistake. You're not perfect. You can't use that one extreme example as the reason why to shoot down an industry or trade or a government or whatever. Fine. Mistakes get made. Even the Mona Lisa's falling apart. Does it really? Oh, please say no. I hope not. But we have to get to the point where we're beyond that. Okay, we're now moving on to the other arm. Not the shields, not the weapons, left arm. And we have to be able to dialogue again. That to me is going to be the most important thing. I try to have no opinion with politics. And that's great. And unfortunately, I think that that's also naive, but I think that's great. I would love for us to be in a place where, where we can just sit silently and say nothing and nothing will happen. I think we're in a place now where we can't. Now, this is not to say take up arms. I'm not saying go out there and march, but I think that we're at a time in our life, in our constituency, where we can't. This is why I'm doing this. I'm hoping in a few years when hopefully sanity returns, I won't do this OSG thing. I don't want to do this thing. Well, I do because I feel like I got to get my voice out. Because trust me, every week it builds up, and it's like this tension just builds up. B2, whoops. You know, but I think at some point you're going to have to do something. You know, there's only so much sitting on the sidelines, you know, that one can do. And by that, again, I don't mean that you have to go out there and protest and, you know, go out on YouTube and do your whatever it is that you know, like what I'm doing. That's not the point. But at some point, you're going to have to realize that what's going on, it just can't continue. And I think it's remember, and Joe started with this. It's good people doing nothing that creates these kinds of problems. You know, one of the things about having something that's gold colored, and this isn't plated but gold colored, is that if you can't, the nub itself will always be dark. I can only ding dong ditch only so many people. Yeah. I was talking with a client today whose politics, and I don't do this often, but I know where his politics lie, and they lie in the same direction as I do. And we were talking about, you know, his daughter graduated high school and is about to start college, and mine is as well. And we're talking about places where, you know, that, you know, about just, you know, our kids and what's going to happen. They're both daughters. So he's got a daughter, I got a daughter. And, you know, one of the fears I have now is, and people who know me know, I love Texas. I love Texas. I love the food. I love the people. I love Houston. I know I'm one of those crazy guys. I love Houston. I love Austin. They're beautiful places. I've enjoyed going to the countryside, and I've enjoyed going to the cities. It's a beautiful place. When my daughter did not get into University of Houston, and it wasn't because her grades weren't there, and I got to justify this. I know I'm a dad. I got to justify this. It's because they required class ranking, and they don't do class ranking at our school. So she submitted nothing, and that dinged her. But when she got declined, and this is coming from, we've got family down there, we've got close friends down in Texas and everything. She would have had people nearby, but the lunacy that's going on down there scared me so much. So when she didn't get into University of Houston, I was hated, and that bothers me because I would love for her to have gone down there, but there's so much polarization and negativity with your politics down there. It's heartbreaking. Other protests draw too much attention and get met with an unreasonable amount of strategic pressure that disrupts actual. No, throwing rocks at ICE isn't safe for even the migrants, though. Absolutely. Violence doesn't get you anywhere. Protests should, just so we're on the same page, protests aren't about violence, right? And I would assume you'd agree with me on that one. It's not about violence. Yes. And I also think that okay, hey, I protested. Hey, life is better. No, that's the beginning. It's like when you watch a Disney movie and it's like, you know, and they lived happily ever after. Well, the story that ends is only part of it. Now the rest of your life begins. That's what's going on. And right now, oh great, we protested, great. Now what? What's next? You know, now hopefully some of that will be a call to action for other things. And again, call to action isn't to go out there and do more protesting or what have you. You have to decide what that is. But at some point, as I said, you know, to kind of, I'm not sure if Ken was being serious or not, but at some point, you can't stand on the sidelines. You know. And in fact, what's fascinating as hell, D25. That's not right. What's fascinating as hell is, it's again, I think it's like when people stand in the sidelines, I'm upset with everyone. I hope not. Getting those people in place to run for position. Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I think that's been one of the benefits of all this. Look, in any intense situation like what we're experiencing right now, it does have the possibility of creating a better society. It's almost like this is the trial by fire. This is what's going to galvanize, maybe make things better for the world. That maybe this vilification that we've had for other countries. Maybe dialogue between the European Union and China will create, or Australia or other countries will create, because we're all looking at this one sort of bad situation that's going on. It's allowing for other good to come forward. I'm optimistic. I have my opinions. I just try not to have opinions. It's kind of a lame life. No offense, Ken. I hope you have opinions. I have opinions. I'm not saying they're all good, and I'm sure you don't want to hear them. Not all of them. Then look at those leaders of those groups and look up their values. Right. All right. We got another 5 minutes, and then we're going to call it a session. I get to shut up for another week, and everybody goes, yay. But, I think I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic that I just like to hear you judge my comments. Do you? Ken, let's go out for a beer or a coffee, and then I'll crucify you. I am joking. My life, apparently. Nah. I like visiting other countries because people are hospitable. I know America can do the same thing. It's a wait. 100%. It is. And again, I think if for those of us who've traveled the world and seen other parts of the world or other parts of a country or whatever, when you see others, when you have different experiences, it kind of broadens your world a little bit. Boundary is like a leaky screwdriver. Like a leaky screwdriver. Yes, agreed. 8, 3, 4. So I'm optimistic that as difficult as the U.S. is going to have a time in the next, I think for the next generation, I also am optimistic that we could end up galvanizing the world to be in a better place. Now, having said that, what's going on in Iran and Israel ain't going to do good for us. Gotta go, Space Noise. Remember, defend thy neighbors. Love you all. Joe, love you too, brother. Thanks for being on. Appreciate all your feedback too. This is one of those times where I'm hoping that, that the world will kind of come together in a way that will get us through this really crazy, difficult time. I'm not optimistic that the U.S. is going to be the ones who are going to do it. And maybe it's time for the world to kind of step forward and kind of do some stuff that's going to help. Ken is giving away his degradation king. You're not going to make money that way. Yeah, probably not. But I hope that we can come together at some point in a very positive manner. What the hell did I just do? Yeah, that's right. Hold a second. Bang. There we go. Make sure these fit together correctly. Okay. But I hope that that other parts of the world will start coming together. I remember a few months back when all this tariff shit started blowing up, China, Japan and South Korea were all talking. Whoa, that was a glorious thing to hear. Tell me I'm worthless. Tell me my life is lame. Absolutely not. Ken, I've had the pleasure of meeting you, and you are one of the sweetest people I've had the opportunity to meet in the last decade. And I'm very in person, and I've been enriched by knowing you. Thanks for streaming. Hopefully, the world becomes a better place and starts with us every day. Absolutely, that's how I always end it, Light, and we're about to end it right now. So that is exactly it. It's up to us to make a change. It's not going to be. It's not going to be the those people in charge. Oh, let them fix the problem. No, it's up to us. And it always starts not with not with getting involved in politics, but at least getting involved in being kind. Start with that. So when you have a person who's being treated like shit, be kind to them. Don't beat them up. Be kind to them. With that, guys, stay safe and stay sane. Go out there and do good. Continue to brighten the world the way you do every day, because it's getting crazier and nuttier, and there's too much hatred, there's too much tension, there's too much animosity, and the only way it's going to change is with some peaceful conversation and some love. It's the only way. It's not going to change any other way. So with that, do good. Enjoy the day. I'll be back on tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. And not talking politics much. And then we'll be doing the more building. I'll be putting this guy away and going back to the freebie Gundam. So, but good. Go do good out there, guys. Love you all, and I will catch you on the flip side. Peace.